It's not a job. It's not even a profession. It's something like a mission. Um, I felt once like the chosen one of the movie Matrix. I don't know if you've seen that fantastic movie. Uh, you didn't choose really. You didn't deserve. You just feel you can be part of it, and you take the red pills to figure out whether you're right or wrong. Unfortunately, nobody can tell if you are an entrepreneur. The people we try, us and many others will tell us, we try to give you some hints on how to be a successful entrepreneur. Because it's like a state of mind. Huh? It's something like if you get stuck in a traffic jam and you get worried to getting late to an appointment, you suddenly turn into an unpaved road with no direction. You don't know where is it going, but you just hope it goes to the right direction and bring you to the appointment. But by the time you figure out, uh, you have no idea where the street is going, and you got no idea whether you'll be on time or not. It's too late. You cannot. There's no turning back. You have to go ahead and take another hundreds of uncertain decisions, always hoping to get at your appointment. So it's you must be entrepreneurs are pretty optimistic people, especially the one like you who will cope with innovation in a structured way. Most of the things you're gonna do in the future will probably be based upon something innovative. I like to think that scientists are the one who find the doors in the walls and open them. But are the entrepreneurs the ones who envision the bright landscape behind, find the road, and are the first one who jump through the door to see whether it's true or not, even though reality is sometimes different. And I don't know why it is not switch acro. Reality is sometimes different. Okay, the presentation is divided in 3 parts. The first one, I'm going to tell you something about ourselves. I try to give you some hints about to be, a successful entrepreneur. In the second part, I'm gonna tell you what is the point of view of the other side of the barricades from an investor perception, because it's very important to understand how your enemies think, because some of them will be your best friend, the one who will help you to make your dream come true. At the last part, if we have time, I don't think so, I have some techniques in order to figure out the evaluation and evaluation of your potential startup. So really, there are many times a startup can born. Sometimes it's a branch from a bigger company. Sometimes you've been picked up by your boss or your professor. Sometimes you just answer to the right announcement on a paper, but it doesn't matter how good is your idea, how innovative is your vision, how strong is your go-to-market strategy, or your customers. It doesn't even matter about how much money you have or you gain. The real fundament of any startups are the team. This is your main point of strength and the main point of weakness as well. Along your journey, you will probably change your pivot, your project, will change your mind, review your strategy, change anything of your company, of your venture. But if your team is a strong team, you will go through it and find a way. At the contrary, if it's a weak team, no matter how brilliant is your idea, you sooner or later we will have some difficulties, some serious difficulties. So unfortunately, there is no gold receipt to find to build a strong team. Most of the time, it's just a matter of chance. Me and my friend Leonardo and Fabio were just at the same time at the same place. We spent a while together, working together, enjoying together. At a certain moment, all the stars seems to align. And we look each other in the face and said, okay, I'm okay with you, why not? And that was our spark that starts the fire that's still burning. So my suggestion is look for your spark because it's full of sparks around you. You are at the right time because there's a really incredible hype on startups at this moment, and at the right place, in the right place, because all the people around you, especially in this course, are looking for the same. So I say it was a long way, 20 years long, 27, almost 30s. We were young. We met at university. We got similar age. The most important things we had in common was we all had a technical background. We all came from scientific studies, and we were engineers, software engineer, or physics. And that was a really important step because it gave us a common way of thinking, a common understanding, a similar approach, a similar approach to solve problems, to face and take decisions. That is a good point, a good starting point. But besides that, we had really very different attitudes, lifestyles, and ambitions. Some of us wants to get to be the boss of the lab, while other, well, like me, wants to become a manager, or Leonardo, who wants to be the richest salesman in the world. Very, very, very different type of guys. But what glue us really together was the same enthusiasm to find our own way in the coming digital world. Because don't forget, we were at the age at the end of 90s, and that was the top of the internet revolution, where everything needs to be changed. The world looks suddenly old, and we were like, jumping in the future, millions of years ahead. It was a very exciting moment, and we as software engineers felt to be right in the eye of the tornado, and definitely wanted to be part of the show. So a common background is an important thing for your team. A common background is important because you need to talk the same language, you need to understand each other, you need to approach the same way to problems or opportunities. You need to have the same mission because everybody have to row in the same direction, and this is very important as well. But complementarity is another really important aspect for a strong team, because you can unleash your potential, your ambitions, your attitudes without stepping the feet of your companions. So there is the less overlap you have each other, the easier it is not to go in some kind of internal competition. So you're free to move, the rules are clear, and there's no discussion about that. Those three simple steps as elements are three important aspects that characterize a strong team, my point of view, of course. So our first steps, as soon as we get up from the university, we thought that the world of research would be a privileged position to be part of the changement we were facing, and we all entered in different research labs. Someone studying artificial intelligence, well, the very early stage of artificial intelligence. Others for optimization algorithms, energy management, many different stuffs, different labs. And we say that we pushed hard for some years, but at the end, we get really disenchanted because scientific approach really didn't match with the speed of the real world. At least that's what we felt at that time. We felt like watching the world moving just behind the glass of the lab. So at that time, most of the innovation, most of the new solutions were developed into big companies. So we said, okay, maybe we have to try to enter into a big company. And that's what we did. We spent a while in companies like, well, IBM Digital. I mean, we wasn't there, but some companies like that. And that experience gets soon really frustrating. The bigger the company is, the smaller your life space is. And you soon understand you you're just part a gear in a mechanism, in a big mechanism, and feel like being a hamster in the wheel, not doing not doing anything that really matters. So after that, we were disillusioned, and after that, we get up from big companies and enter finally into a micro digital company, a company really small, like 10 employee, no more, but focused on web applications, digital web applications. That was the cutting edge technology at that time. That was really, we all together at the same time in the same company. That was really an exciting experience. We faced really challenging jobs, projects. The environment was really dynamic. We were feeling like being the digital pioneers, and we were. We built the first in that company. We built the first mobile site in Italy, and probably one of the first in the world. There were little fences, little constraints. We were almost completely free to exploit our potentialities. The only things we didn't cope is our own ambition. So creativity, craving, autonomy, and motivation are all clear signs that you probably can't be a good employee. You should try to do something by yourself. What happens next? The micro company had such a tremendous success that was sold to a larger company for an insane amount of money, 20 times its turnover, which is crazy now, but was not that so strange at that period, because at the end of 90s, everybody who talks about digital application is like King Mida, that everything that touches turns to gold. So companies like that with ridiculous turnover or marginality were evaluated millions and millions. And that was shocking for us. But what was worst, really worst, was the fact that the founders bought a yacht. You know, intolerable. But not just the fact that they got a boat. That is already a good motivation to be envious. But the fact that we really felt that the founders reached their goal, what we now call their successful exit. They were now free to do whatever they want, to spend their life in an underground lab or to keep fishing on a boat, whatever they want, and nothing more to show to the world. They are all set. But what about us? Nothing. We were the same guys as before with no money. And now we were part of back into a large company. We were back into a large company. So take well in mind that an entrepreneur is not a missionary. He usually has a very materialistic dream. So do not underevaluate that. You always find what is your real motivation, what is your successful exit, and work in this direction and share it with your partners. Because all of you have to share the same objective. Sometimes young startuppers tell us that the motivation the move them in order to build their startup is to solve some kind of social discrepancy, and that is the only reason they're starting this job. And they say, you maybe try to be a politician, it could be more successful for you. Okay, here we are. The year is 2000. That day we became entrepreneur. Now, we were young. I still got some hairs. We were smiling because the sun was smiling us, and the future looks bright and waiting for us to be conquered. So we were so exciting, so motivated that they really couldn't find any good reason to have a strategy or even a product or a go-to-market approach. We got nothing of that. We just were enthusiastic to be entrepreneur. We wanted to be entrepreneur, but we just thought that being entrepreneur could be something like follow the steps of somebody else, like the founders of the small company that I already told you. And that was really a bad mistake. I just want to give you a simple hint. It's well known that if you want something you never had, you should be prepared to do something you never did. No, that's easy. It's comprehensible. I think everybody agrees about that. So the fish see that an empty bowl, and that it is the bowl he is crowded. So he said, okay, why not going swimming in a new one? Now I am prepared to jump, and I jump. But what is always most of the time is people miss is that you also have to know how to do it. So we were jumping into a bowl full of piranhas, and that is really a dangerous things to do if you're not prepared. So take in real consideration what are you learning in this course, because it's very, very, very important. These were our expectation at the time we get entrepreneurs to make a lot of money, to buy a boat, to grow fast and continuously, to build our deposit like Donald Duck. In reality, the graph below is the stock markets in 2000. So you see the curve was increasing every day, an incredible velocity, and nobody could think that the reality behind the turn was really will be really different. You see the graph. We were at 2002, and just some months after we get constituted, there were the dot-com bubble. So we were just sitting above the dot-com bubble, and we had the least idea about that. There were many crises below that, but that was the first one and really impacting it for the digital economy. You know? A lot of IT companies died, bankrupt, a lot of unemployed. What looks so optimistic suddenly changed colors in a more sad direction. So we had a really bad awakening. There was a huge IT spending market reduction. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of pessimism. Year by year, our customers used to reduce their spending to save money, to swap suppliers, and therefore the competition gets really, really wild. At the time we started, there were a lot of new companies, but the market seems to be big enough for everybody. Now we fight for every single centimeter of the market. ICT companies were completely underevaluated. The same companies evaluated 20 times turnover now are evaluated a fraction of the time. Just 10 years has passed. It was crazy. The bank lost completely trust versus ICT companies. So no more loans, no more money. And that is, you can imagine how difficult it is to manage a fast growing company without money. 50% of our business must be replaced every year. Means half of the customers dies every year, and we need to recreate the business that we lose anytime. So we need to grow, but first to grow, we need to recreate what we lose. Hard times, 60 hours worked per week, and it's not a joke, it was real. We spent 1 year without salary, 2.5 years before we get a minimum regular salary, something we can count on. And our first dividend was distributed 8 years later. So the message is clear. Don't be fooled by your enthusiasm. Follow your enthusiasm, but always keep your feet on the ground. Always look, when are you going? Where are you going? How? Another little tip. Surprisingly, a lot of startuppers think that a startup is some kind of simplified enterprise, something like where you can only focus on the job and make money, and you don't need to care about those boring things like having a balance sheet, taking monies from banks, paying taxes, bureaucracy, all the boring stuffs that every classic enterprise has. Unfortunately, it's the contrary. All startups are enterprises for sure, but the contrary, not all enterprises are startups. Uh, Taking the definition from the dictionary, enterprise is a professional organized legal entity formed by a group of individuals to engage and operate in business, commercial, or industrial purpose. And this has no difference. In this, there's no difference with a startup. No, it's the same story. But a startup is also a recently formed enterprise with a strong degree of innovation, meant to grow quickly and scalable. So it's a startup that has to cope with innovation, has to be innovative, and has to grow quickly and scalable. So it's pretty much more complex than a normal enterprise. So it's the contrary of what is commonly thought. So don't getting loose that your startups may be approached in a non-professional way. If you really want to grow, you need to approach the business, the organization, and all the aspects of your company in a professional, a classic way. Maybe it could be innovative in this as well, but you need all the professionalities inside. And I'm pretty sure that very few startups know how to build an enterprise. So keep this in mind and fill the gap as soon as possible. So as you can imagine, we were really scared, and we felt lost for many years. We were wandering around trying to find out our business model, our value proposition, let me say, our solution fit. And we finally, after 10 years, we finally reached what we call the Hive model. That was our main value proposition and one of our main key of success. I don't want to bother you with details about how it's composed. Just think that we identified some different point of competencies we had in the company and that we feel that our customer really needs, and we produce a value proposition, an offering on each of these pillars, in each of these hexagon. Plus, we managed to configure all those pillars in a flexible way, so we could build a tailor-made solution that applies a multi competences and that applies in a better way to our customer. And that was an important changing points against our competitors, who most of them used to have very classic and rigid value proposition. Most of all, we finally found our product. We built a gaming solution, a betting platform, and that was a very, very, very successful business, and it is still a successful business. So you well know this rule: keep failing, keep pivoting. Sooner or later, it will work. And that was for us, but it took 10 years. The other important, I think the most important aspect of our success was the vision of bringing innovation into our value proposition. So thanks to good relation we always had with the University of Rome, we founded 2 research labs. The most important one, it was the wireless lab with Professor Vitaletti, with which we tried to fill the gap between industry and academia. It was a really exciting place to create new ideas, to get enthusiasm, get ideas, get from the academic world, bring them to the industry. Something like making prototyping, building research projects, and embedding all these competencies in an innovative fashion into our core competencies. So we finally went to the market bringing not only a flexible and customizable offering, but also with a strong innovative flavor. It did give us a very strong advantage against our competitors, especially because it will help us to sit on tables where we could never met before, as we got solution that only we and few of others like us could provide. So that was really a key element of success. Also, it was very useful to fund the company. So because we got almost 2 millions financed research projects, mainly financed by the European community. So that probably is the key for us, was the key for us. But you already know that. These are just examples of some of the most interesting projects, research projects we did. We're working on underwater meshed, self-organized communication network, something really, really challenging. We've been working as a pioneer in the IoT world, building and studying virtual sensor networking, so reusing IoT infrastructure. We approached the first prototypes of wearable devices in order to perform health management, monitoring, and things like that. Now, all stuff that are now embedded in any smartphone. We've been working a lot with near-field communication, applied in logistic tracking, conservation, counterfeiting, in medicine, food, and many other areas. We work on mobility, in tourism, in urban scenarios, as well as in open data. But what was our most, let me say, the project we are most proud of is Pleased. With Pleased, we were one of the only two Italians in charge of coordinating a future emerging technology project of the European Union. That means project that has an vision to market in 15 years, at least 15 years. So very, very far away, very pioneering. And the police project was a project whose aim was to understand the behavior of plants by interpreting the electronic signal we can measure at two ends of a plant. So we see the electronic signal and understand what's going on with the plant. So something very, very, very exciting, very innovative. There's nothing yet, I guess, no, Andrea? Along our story, we got a lot of achievement. I don't want to bother you. I just want to mention the honorable mention that the President of the Italian Republic gave us in 2010, and the award at the 3GSM World Congress. So we did a lot of things, really a lot of things. At the top of our dimension, we produced 12 million turnovers, not a huge amount of money, but with almost 40% of marginality. That is huge. Just consider that companies like ours usually have a turnover, an EBIT marginality between 10 and 15, so we were more than double. And this thanks to the characteristic of our value proposition that let us bring projects in a different way and different fashion at a different price as well. We got 50 customers all around the world, till Australia, and 130 employees. 95% of them were computer science engineers like you. Along our journey, we branched many startups. So when we found some interesting ideas that make sense, we think they make sense for the market, we branch it in a new startup and let them go with its own walk by of course, following and helping the companies. So we funded at least 6 companies, more than Nexe. Nexe was our holding company. But there were more than those. These were just the most important. And those companies were focused on underwater networking, cybersecurity, public identification. Just think about speed, the speed project. We were pioneering on this, or Microsoft technology, the wireless labs based on focused mainly on near field communication. There was really a lot of hype, a lot of energy on, on this, and that was the result. Most of them failed. Just WSense is still alive, even though we're no more inside. So dealing with failure is something any entrepreneur must know very well. Failure is something you should deal, should consider in every decision you take. And we were no exception. So, but at the end, in 2016, the holding company was acquired by a French multinational, and that was one of the top 10 Italian ICT company acquisition in 2016 by enterprise value. And then means we had a pretty satisfactory, successful exit, even though we were forced to work for other 3 years, and in the company we couldn't buy the boat. But the message is we finally did it, but it was a long way, and it took 16 years for many reasons. And first of all, because we didn't really have a strategy since the beginning. So the message is don't be hurry, learn from your mistake, and never, ever quit. You know how many times we thought to quit? Almost every day. Now we are in 2019, end of 2019, we came back on the road. We founded an Nexsecutive with which we wanted to bring our competence and experience as an entrepreneur in digital economy to young startups or small and medium enterprises. The mission of Nexsecutive is, so we are all involved in Nexsecutive right now. The mission is to support startups and SMED in defining and developing their business idea, tutoring, advising the managers, integrating core competences, and providing some financial support to some extent. We usually step side by side with founders to boost their market growth and visibility. So we love to put the hands in the honey. And last but not least, we assist, as we all were technicians, we assist IT office of the startup to build industrial grade, scalable and efficient platforms and infrastructure. That because we have very clear that once you get up from the university, from computer science engineers, you will for sure be able to build a super convincing MVP or a pilot, but you will be light years from building an industrial grade scalable platform that will support the growth that you expect for your company. And in this step, in this, we could really help you. Our value proposition, very briefly, is composed by a startup mentorship where we do without cost. So we sitting next to the founders, we support the founders and digital entrepreneurs from very early stage up to the following level. We act as business angel, empowering startup with a wide spectrum of advisory and funding services. Execute some executive advisory, so helping managers taking the most complex decisions or envision the strategy. We support the business development and the development of innovative application services or process, because this is something we really did in all our entrepreneur life. And as I already mentioned, we also we support the IT office. At the end of 2020, we were 6 active members, more than 10 specialist partners, each on with different competence. We got a funding capacity of 500 keys. That is not huge, but it's growing, and it's enough for very early stage startups. In 1 year, we evaluated we received more than 300 pitch of startups, and discussed those 300. 100 of them was analyzed, discussed, and evaluated every year. We are now coaching 30 startups and funded 2 of them. The portfolio is composed of incubators, business angel networks, both local or on national level. We also talk with international investors, like in Holland, in Germany, in England. We work with crowdsourcing companies, public and private investors, or big consulting companies that are always looking for startups and new ideas to empower their offerings. And these are just some of them. It is increasing very fast. So I completed the first part. I guess, Andrea, we can continue now to the second part. Yeah.
You have other 20 minutes. It's up to you to spend it as you wish.
Okay. So I just want to give you some hints on how is the vision on the other side of the barricades, as I said. So you really need to understand, in order to face an investor, you need to understand how do they think and what do they expect from you. And this is, and you need this regardless of the fact that you need their money or not. It is a very important sanity check you should do to see things from a different point of view, from a very pragmatic, a very solid, very less emphasized approach, because you have to convince. You're already convinced, you're already a fan of your initiative, but this may bring you to some illusions, to some bad decision, like the one we did at the beginning of our experience. So take in mind that sooner or later you will need funds, because you need money to make your business growth, unless you don't want to wait for 20 years or 16 years like happens to us. If you want to grow organically, it would take a long time. Otherwise, you need to ask money. And there are many times of investors, from family, friends, and fools or incubators that are typically the one who support the very early stage when you still are in the garage. Then there are business angel and seeds funds. The main purpose is to help you at the early stage of your company when you have to prove you have a good idea. You found the market fit. Then there are venture capital when you want to grow in the market, the private equity when you want to scale up, and finally, some of you, I hope, will see the stock market. It's not necessary. Any kind of investors take part in a different type of maturity of your business and has a different capacity in terms of funds. Probably you don't need millions when you are still PowerPoint level. No, and on the contrary, you need millions when you get up, when you grow up. Very, very quickly, there are, and simplifying, there are 4 major type of investment: pre-seed and pre-seed. That are focused on the very early stage of the company. In that period, the scope of this funding is to help you verify your proof of concept, to build your prototype, so I understand whether you may have a market fit. At this level, the intervention mainly focus on hiring the necessary people, the good people, the people that will help you grow fast. The amount of investment are well below 1 million. Usually in Italy is between 50 to 200 keys. Then there are Series A, B, and C, who act at growing level of maturity that focus on, as I said, a different level of needing of the startup. The Series A aims to support the the first approach to the market. The Series B means focus to support the growth phase of the market, while the C, the scale-up phase of the market. And of course, they involve different amount of monies. But this is all, literature. But what really investor thinks about startups? You should keep very well in mind that investing in startups are a really risky job. It's definitely by far the most risky type of investment an investor should think about. So don't be surprised. He is very skeptical, very prudent. The average investor, because he has really fear to lose his money, is betting his house when he invests on you. And the younger you are, the higher the risk is, of course. The average investor generally does not trust startups, will not understand much of your solution because he doesn't have the competences to understand all details. It's your turn. It's up to you to make it clear, to make it understand the potential and the power of your solution. Do not expect that he understands autonomously what are you talking about, because he will not share your enthusiasm at all. For sure, don't think that your enthusiasm could convince him. He wants to see facts. He wants to see motivations. He wants to see rationale. Having a good idea is not enough. Of course, it's a necessary condition, but it's not enough. It's not sufficient. To raise capital, you need to be able to demonstrate that you know how to do it and that it's worth the risk. So you have to show, I say, okay, you got a good idea, but will you be able to monetize this idea so that I, as an investor, will have my expected return? That's the point. You should be very convincing. And that's the point you should focus. So not just the enthusiasm, not just because it's the best idea of the world. He doesn't think, his brain works in a different way. A good idea for an investor is not necessarily a good business. A good business is only one that generates good profits. So read at the contrary. Good profit is generated only by good ideas. So does really matter to be evaluated? If most of the startups believe that the discussion with an investor is basically agreeing on an enterprise value. This is for certainly part of the discussion, but in general, but for startups, the startupper world is a bit different. In general, the rule of the investor is, it is not what you buy that determines your result, is what you pay for. And this is true for startup as well. For example, if your startup is sold for 50 millions, someone invested at 1 million enterprise value, it would have a 50 times return of his investment. That is a really satisfactory result. But if he invested at 10 million, of course, his result is just 5 times. You may say, okay, 5 times is always a good result. No, it is not for startup investor, because the only certain things when you invest in startup is the risk is high. And if the risk is high, the return must be high as well. Just look at the example on the right, taken from Uber, the famous company. At a certain point of his life, for sure, a very early stage, the company has been evaluated. The founders evaluated this company 5.4 million. It's ridiculous if you think of the value of the company by now, but that was a really early stage. So 55.4 million looks very low, but at that price, a lot of investors, of startup investors that are still on the market, are very accredited, decided not to proceed, drop the offer. They said it's too much. They have evaluated their company too much. the history says that those who invested at that price had a 6,500 almost times the return of their investment. That is, of course, a miracle, something impossible to reproduce. So we may conclude, okay, so 5.4 million was the right price. Yeah, maybe, but what if the founders ask the double or 4 times or even 12 times? If the founders asked for 60 million, the same company at the same time, and you decided to invest and investor decided to invest, he still would have almost 600 times return of his investment. That is still an incredibly good result. So the lesson is, who is the only one who took the wrong decision? The one who didn't invest it at all, regardless the evaluation of the company. From example like that, maybe not so glamorous for investor like that. From example like that, investor realizes that far more important than pay the right price or do the correct evaluation is not to miss the unicorn. And more, one of the most important investment funds that invest in startups states the rule that you can only invest in startups where a single startup has a potential to return the whole value of the investment fund. So with just one successful exit, you recover all the investment. That means that the investors used to be very, very choosy, very selective, because they want to find the unicorn. And once you think that the company, that startup is a unicorn, it doesn't really matter. I mean, at least it doesn't matter that much the valuation it asks. So really, enterprise value is the least aspect on which you will be evaluated as a startup. Of course, when you get more mature, other aspects were taken into account. But at this level, you should first focus on other aspects. And so, what is the investor looking for? These are some key points that we figure out along our experience, and some is taken from the literature, of course. First of all, the investor looks for a dedicated and complete team. The team, again, is the foundation of the company. If you are not strong with the team, if you don't convince the investor of the team, you may have the best idea of ever, but you won't probably be selected. It's a deal-breaking condition almost every time. Of course, needs expect to see a reasonable and feasible product and business model, but that's what you're studying for. He needs to clearly understand that his money, the money you are asking him, is necessary for a startup in order to speed up, to accelerate the development process. This looks normal, but you can't imagine how many times startups ask for 100 keys, 200 keys to an investor, and at the same time they show their forecasting that states that they have 500 keys in cash in the bank. So the investor said, "Why are you asking for money for me if you are richer than what I can give you?" So that's a very ingenious mistake. Provide realistic prospect for income and dimensional growth. More important than giving big numbers. Don't think that the bigger the numbers, the most excited the investor is. It's more important that you give him realistic valuation, or rational elements that may feel him comfortable in thinking that could be realistic. Of course, you must be innovative. The market you target should be with high potential. Otherwise, you will never have the expected return that is always high. Every startup show a competitive advantage, but you must provide the rationale, some rationale behind it. So do not just put yourself on the top right of the Gartner quadrant, because every startups are already there. Every startup thinks they are the best one, but this, of course, is not true. And in any case, you have to demonstrate, you have to give rationale as well as for the numbers. Risk reducing assets, something like patents, complex algorithms, complex software platforms or machines are risk reducing as aspects. So that will help a lot the investors to feel less risky in investing in you. So it's as our aspect you should really focus on. In the last year, there's some attention in social and environment impact, so this count as well. But last but not least, you should provide him a feasible exit scenario in a medium terms. That means 3, 5, in some rare case, 7 years. And again, the investor must feel that he could really do it, could really reach that exit scenario. So you must explain how he could have an exit and how and at what price, with what return. After you convince him on all those aspects, then you could talk about a coherent enterprise evaluation. There will be discussion on that, of course, but first of all, you need to convince him on all those other aspects. So now that you know that, do you think you have a persuasive answer to all of that? Test it. Test it with your friends. Test it with people you know with some degree of competence, not just with investors, because it's an important sanity check you should do for yourself, first of all. Basic common mistakes you should really avoid. As something we heard, we saw many times while we assess our startups. The team has recently formed. We just met each other, so you don't have a team. Deal breaking. I am the creator of the majority shareholders. The others holds a minority. That means there's a one-man show. The others are not committed. So again, there's no team. It's just you, and that's a really weak point. My idea is revolutionary. I have no competitors. That's impossible. If really you have no competitor, that should be a problem for you, first of all. So check carefully. I know the market. I do not agree with your concern. How do you know the market? Have you spent 20 years working on this market? Are you a professional? How do you support this sentence? If you can't support it, it just looks arrogant or superficial. Competitors are there, but they take care of something else. It looks like your competitors are always looking for something else, but that's not true. This can't be true. Competitors are hungry and they will definitely try everything, and they have already probably tried what you're trying to do. And if they are not doing that, they will probably do the day after you start doing it. So you must explain why you do it better than your competitors and why your customers should buy your stuff and not the one of your competitors. That's the point. My job is something else. It's basically a hobby. I do it as spare time. Means you are not focused. You're not on the startup, and so there is definitely no chance to success. You will devote all yourself, probably, or even your family. I can't devote myself dedicated to the project. I have to support myself economically. Well, it's understandable, but in that case, better you find a job. We'll find technicians, not an issue, or we will outsource the production of the core. That's another banana sleep. I don't know. I don't remember the word in English. We all are innovative startups, so the core of our technology must be well kept, safe, must be protected. We must know every single bit of our platform because we have to know the weak points. We have to evolve it at any time, in any moment. And we cannot risk to outsource that to somebody else, because sooner or later, the outsourcer will understand that he has the key of your business, and that would change dramatically the relationship with you and the suppliers. So build a startup and put inside all the necessary competences and assets that constitute the core of your business. It's a very rich market. We just need 1%. It will be successful. There's another very superficial evaluation. 100% is a huge amount of money. Your competitors will kill for far less than 1%. Will fight for every single penny. So they won't let you those 1% for any reason. You have to show how you think you take that percentage that is now in charge of some of your competitors. Cannot make prediction between now and 3 or 5 years. I understand it's complex to make prediction. Sometimes it seems to you it makes no sense, but if you don't make prediction, means you don't have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're walking in the dark, and no investors will join you while you are walking in the dark. You have to build your project. You need to have your strategy, and then you, of course, will produce your prediction, because these are the expectations you think to have with your project. Get only positive feedbacks from our survey or MVP. This only means you didn't do the right job. Only negative, most of the time, all the negative feedbacks are the one who will help you improve your MVP. Otherwise, it's probably a useless job. We don't need managers or industry experts. We already have everything clear. Again, that's another arrogant and superficial sentence. How do you think you know them? How do you think you don't need industry experts? Have you been 20 years on the market? Have you been a manager? Do you know how it works? No, probably no. So don't say that. Instead, be honest with the investor and say, I don't know how to do that. And please help me in building the right team, because he expects you to ask that. If you don't ask this is something, that may raise some suspicion against you. Just 2 minutes, okay.
Yeah, even less, actually.
Okay, that's the last slide of the second part. So I will conclude here. This is just to give you a sad idea of how selective, challenging is the process of being financed. And usually in 1,000 submitted startups, with submitted, it means you do just the paperwork, the pitch, and the business plan. Just 10% of them are selected for the screening phase, for the second phase, which is the screening. So 90% were discarded at just looking at the paper, okay? Nothing else. So it is important to write good papers, to build the correct business plan and convincing pitch. Anyway, those 100 were interviewed by the investors, because they need to see in your face, they need to understand more about yourself, your experience, your desires, your exit strategy, and whatever of your business. Then 50 of them goes to a due diligence phase. That is the phase where the investors went into deep of your startup. It could be very short. If you are at early stage, could be very long. If you are more mature, in our case, it took 1 year and a half. But at last, just 10 projects are invested. So the casualty is 99%. And you see, these are statistic numbers. So it's a very, very challenging job. But don't despair, keep trying. If you get discharged, that means you should improve, you should rethink something, you should improve your documentation. You'll probably be discharged in the first phase. Think about what you wrote, think about what the investor expect for you, do it better and do it again, do it again, do it again. And sooner or later, you will get your attention. Okay, thanks, Andrea. Now there's evaluation matrix. That is the third phase, but we don't have time
okay,
right now.
Fabrizio. I think there is Mario.